Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Buddhaya. Today, friends, we continue our discussion from the last week. I think you remember the Sutta, Kaya Sutta. We started few lines, read the first lines, opening lines. Because there are things to be abandoned by body, not by speech. There are things to be abandoned by speech, not by body. There are things to be abandoned neither by body nor by speech, but by having repeatedly seen with wisdom. So we already talked about the bodily restraint and also the verbal restraint. There we studied that we should come to the skillful conduct, and that way we avoid the unskillful conduct by body and speech. And again, we learned that it is not possible to do that good conduct by body uh, starting the speech. We cannot avoid that by speech, but we must avoid that by coming to the good conduct by the body. And also by speech, we cannot do that by body when we have the restraint by speech. We must come to the good conduct by speech. That way we avoid a bad conduct by speech. Which means there are its own unique restraint. There is body restraint and speech verbal restraint. And by coming to this good conduct, we avoiding them. It is like we are replacing, just the same way that we do with our mental training. When anger arises, what we do is to replace that anger with loving kindness. Just the same way, body and speech should be replaced by good conduct. When there's a person who is harming living beings, they bring up the careness and the caring to the loving to the living beings. That way they abandon the harmful action by body. And when there is a speech, when there is a harsh speech, by coming to the gentle speak, they avoid the harsh speech. And also we learned that it's not necessarily that we avoid everything without doing nothing. It's not kind of um, such a like stopping all the actions, but we are replacing so that it lead us to a pure mind. Now, friends, again, I said that this is according to the Buddhist order, Buddha's instructions, that there is this community of monks and community of nuns and laities, and in the group, in that circle, they help each other by having this support by instructing others by when they see some bad action in their life. Now, this is actually we talked about this in our last session. I don't go much detail into that, but I will just simply read these two passages so that you will understand more what we talked last time. Now the Buddha say like this, and what bhikkhus are the things to be abandoned by body, not by speech. Here, a bhikkhu has committed a particular unwholesome deed with the body. His wise fellow monks investigate him and say thus, you have committed a particular unwholesome deed with the body. It would really be good if you would abandon bodily misconduct and develop bodily good conduct. Actually, this is the elders' instructions that we receive. Normally, that instruction is almost always a Dhamma teaching. Normally, that they share some fact in the Dhamma, like you can avoid that action. That way, you can reach and more close to the enlightenment. So they give kind of such a Dhamma teaching, Dhamma instruction. It is not like finding a fault and attacking the person, but it is more like delivering a Dhamma discussion so that one can practice that. When his wise fellow monks investigate him and speak to him, he abandons bodily misconduct and develops bodily good conduct. These are called things to be abandoned by body, not by speech. That is why there is something called virtue, and there are some practices that if a person is having a unwholesome bodily conduct, that there is a way that they lead, the elders lead the practitioner to get away from that, to release from that. And what are the things to be abandoned by speech, not by body? Here, a bhikkhu has committed a particular unwholesome deed by speech. His wise fellow monks investigate him and say thus, you have committed a particular unwholesome deed by speech. It would really be good if you would abandon verbal misconduct and develop verbal good conduct. When his wise fellow monks investigate him and speak to him, he abandons verbal misconduct and develops verbal good conduct. These are called things to be abandoned by speech, not by body. Now, as we can see, friends, the others can see the actions by our body and by our speech. So when a person would like to support us to our spiritual path, there can be someone who helping us by saying that there is this action should be fixed according to the Dhamma. It is said that in the teachings, the person who is uh, showing a certain unskillful action is like a person who is showing a treasure. In the Dhammapada, there is a gatha like that, a verse like that. Buddha say, when a person instruct to correct a certain action, it is like a person who is showing a treasure. So when we hear about a treasure, if somebody were to bring the news of a treasure, that there is a treasure that you can go and take it, we would be so much affectionate for the person who is showing the treasure. So the same way, Buddha say, when a person is helping and supporting us to fix our virtue, is like is showing a treasure. So that when we see through that instruction, we can see in our life there is something to be fixed, and then that way I can come back to my bodily good conduct. I can come back to my verbal good conduct. So it is like a treasure according to the Buddha's teachings. Now, after that, Buddha say, and what are the things to be abandoned neither by body nor by speech, but by having repeatedly seen with wisdom? Okay, this is the part we will talk today. Things to be abandoned by wisdom. Okay, it is not to be abandoned by body or speech. when there is something, a distraction in our heart, that which is disturbing us, now we need to abandon that, just the way that we abandoned unskillful body and verbal conduct. We should abandon that from our heart. What do you think? Is it possible to abandon distractions by our heart? Do you believe that we all or you can abandon that when there is such a distraction? Do you see, friends, in this teaching, it says, having repeatedly seen with wisdom, repeatedly, continuously, seeing with wisdom. So by how we see that, what is this microscope, the tool to see that distraction in the heart?
Wisdom, Bante.
Exactly, it is wisdom, which means wisdom is like an eye. Do you see, according to this teaching, wisdom is like an eye, like an inner eye, which means it lets you see what is inside. Okay. Now also it says that you should use that eye of wisdom repeatedly, not just once, but continuously, repeatedly. You should look through that eye of wisdom. And for which purpose? Why should we see through that wisdom? What is the purpose for that?
So we can abandon the unwholesome.
Exactly. The practice is to abandon. Okay? Practice is to abandon by seeing repeatedly with the eye of wisdom. Okay? Now, it is not to be abandoned by body and speech. We cannot abandon that by body, and we cannot do that by speech. Let's say that we are having a discussion all day long about these problems, about the distractions. We cannot abandon that by speech.
Where does the heart come in this?
Well, the heart, mind, consciousness, these are, I call, for the similar aspects of our
So,
being.
so it's related to wisdom.
No,
No,
heart
it isn't.
is
Oh,
no. Heart is not wisdom. It is different. I'll talk about that difference later in a discussion. Okay. Now here, I would say interchangeably, I would use the heart, sometimes consciousness, sometimes mind. But when you listen and when you understand, try to get the meaning as this is talking about the same quality. Let's say for now, I don't like to go much detail into that so that it can confuse. But I would say it is something in our inner being, because it arises from the same conditions, whether it is mind or heart or consciousness, it has the same conditions. That is nama rupa, mentality and materiality. Whatever that we say. I would say this one. This is very special for this discussion. Now, Buddha once said, monks, this consciousness is pure. Luminous monks, this consciousness. Luminous monks, this mind, this heart, it's luminous, which means Buddha say it is in its very beginning, when it enters to the samsara, the place where it started, its beginning is very bright, it's very pure. Mind is very pure, very clean, and very much brighted and luminous. That's the word Buddha used. Luminous means it is another way, but Buddha expresses about the purity of the mind when it started. But Buddha say, because of the foreign defilements, because of the foreign bad thoughts, the mind became polluted. Mind became impure. Mind lost its brightness. Mind lost it. and mind fell into a state of stain, a state of impurity, while when it is wandering in the samsara. Now, what are the foreign defilements? Those are the greed, anger, delusion, jealousiness, all the other rest of the unskillful thoughts. Those are foreign, which means these are not something inside the mind, which means these are not born with the mind, but they are collected by when it is wandering in the rebirth. It came to the mind and attached to the mind when it's wandering. What do you think? Even in this life, when we uh, see and look at our heart, our mind, we see that there are things entering throughout the day to our mind. Throughout the day, it enters to our heart, and it make our heart to be impure. For an example, let's say anger in our innate nature of the mind is very pure, but because of the anger, mind start to change and start to impure, and it will start its pollution. And later, when it work in the heart as anger, gradually it lost its mindfulness, and it will work up until a bad speech, and up until it's bad come to a bad action. But it's originally started by the mind, not actually the mind itself, but it is because of this foreign defilement which enters to the mind. It entered into the mind and started to manifest into other rest of the other actions and made impurity. But its essence is very luminous, very bright. What we are doing with the practice is that we are cleansing that heart to back to normal, so that it is the liberation. It is the complete cleansing of the heart, so that it doesn't have anger, but it has the loving kindness. It doesn't have the greed, but it has the contentment. It will come to the contentment. It will never have the delusion or ignorance. It will come to the understanding, to the knowledge. Okay? Whatever we call it, whether it is mind or consciousness or heart, it bring up the anger, it bring up the delusion, it bring up the greed and jealousiness, all the rest of the unskillful things. But it is not the essence of our life. It is something added later as a foreign defilement. Okay.
But isn't that rooted in wisdom?
What?
Well, when you say the heart or the mind, the
Yeah.
defilement of the heart or the mind,
Yeah.
I still believe that is rooted in wisdom, no?
Wisdom does not bring greed.
If my wisdom is blinded, defiled, my heart is not pure.
Well, no. A heart is not pure because there is ignorance.
Yes. And
But once
ignorance,
when there is wisdom, mind does not have, when there's wisdom, mind does not make greed
but
or anger.
wisdom can be overshadowed um, by defilement, or simply overshadowed. Wisdom is not always pure.
Wisdom, okay. I will share with you another teaching to understand this. Probably I'll come to that question later, okay? Because we need to go to this discussion. And we'll talk about that later. Now Buddha say, and what are the things to be abandoned neither by body nor by speech, but by having repeatedly seen with wisdom? Greed is to be abandoned neither by body nor by speech, but by having repeatedly seen with wisdom. Now the greed is something to be looked through the eye of wisdom. Greed is existing in the mind, but it should be seen through the wisdom. For which purpose? To abandon it. Again, hatred, delusion, anger, hostility, denigration, insolence, miserliness is to be abandoned neither by body nor by speech, but by having repeatedly seen with wisdom. Okay. Now, what is wisdom? Now, one day, like we already learned about the wisdom in different perspectives. Like we learned that the wisdom is the knowledge of the awakening. Wisdom is the knowing of the nature of the existence, like such as impermanence, unsatisfactory, and non-self. And also we learned wisdom is the ability to distinguish what is good and what is bad. Now this wisdom is what we need to purify our heart. That is what we need to purify our actions, our bodily verbal actions. And that is also seen as the outcome of the mindfulness, outcome of the virtue. That is why we need to practice wisdom. Once a person asked the Buddha that Buddha, the inside is tangled, outside is tangled, entire population is entangled in a tangle. And Buddha, I asked you, how do you untangle this tangle? Then the Buddha said, you based your life on a ethical conduct, which means virtue, and you develop your mind, you develop your heart, you develop the concentration. And with that concentration, you start to see things as they really are, which means wisdom. And that way you untangle that tangle. Buddha just gave the answer, straight and exact answer for that. That is how you untangle this tangle, which means tangle means actually the bad thoughts. A tangle means the unskillful thoughts like greed, anger, delusion. Those are the tangles. Those are the problems in the world. When people have suffering, sorrow, those are started with the greed, with the anger, with the delusion. I don't think like the loving kindness would make us a tangle. Loving kindness won't make us tanglement or contentment, or the knowledge won't make any tangles. So the Buddha said, you based yourself in a virtue and you develop your concentration, and by that you arouse the wisdom, and that way you untangle the tangle, which means that you enter to the awakening so that you get the final goal. Now, one day a person asked the Buddha, how Buddha can we develop wisdom? How can we gain the wisdom? That's a very beautiful question that asked by this person, and it is a very important question that ever asked, because do you like wisdom? Do you desire wisdom, friends? Do you like to get wisdom? Yes, we all desire wisdom. Now, behalf of us, this person asked Buddha how to get the wisdom. You know, it was not a man who asked the Buddha this question. No, is a deva asked this question, but it was asked by a yakka. Okay, alavaka yakka. Yakka means demon. Okay. Now he asked, how does one gain wisdom? Okay, he has a couple of questions, but I will only take the first one. There are other questions also he asked, and you would love to hear that also. The second question was, how does one obtain wealth? How does one achieve fame? How does one win many friends? when passing from this world to the next, how does one not sorrow? Buddha gave this answer. To the first question, Buddha gave the answer. When arahants taste the Dhamma leading to Nibbana, which means the enlightened beings taste the teachings, Dhamma leading to Nibbana. Goal is the enlightenment, Nibbana. Arahants, which means Buddha, taste the teachings which lead to the enlightenment. If one listen to that Dhamma with close attention and confident mind and investigate that Dhamma diligently, then in this way one wins wisdom. Now these are the teachings that we discuss, the Dhamma. It was taught by the Buddha, the enlightened being, and it leading to a goal, enlightenment. If one listen to that Dhamma with close attention, which means from your part, from our part, we should listen to that teaching with close attention without letting any word to escape from our memory, from our focus. We should listen carefully because these words are bringing enlightenment. Okay? And confident mind, which means having faith, trust on that teaching. This is the important part. And investigates that Dhamma diligently. You see, one investigates, which means one start to look through the teachings inside the life in a way of investigation. When they start to investigate what is my life, what Buddha taught, do I really have greed? Do I really have anger? Are there any ways that I can escape from anger? Is this possible to do? Is there any way that I can look at this angry thought with my wisdom so that I can remove that? This way one investigates Dhamma diligently. Then in this way one wins wisdom. Then in this way one wins wisdom, which means that person develops wisdom. Literally, which means wisdom is nothing else but the Buddha's teachings, that when Buddha taught it, Buddha's knowledge is the wisdom. We are listening to carefully and we place the trust on it and we start to investigate according to the teaching, and then we unravel the wisdom. We unravel the wisdom, which means we cut off the ignorance. Because we learned that the ignorance is like a dark room. When a person brings the light of candle, the ignorance gradually leaves the room because of the light, which means the consciousness is like the room that it is embedded with the ignorance. That's why it is wandering in the samsara. But when somebody bring up the wisdom through the teachings, the wisdom means the awakening knowledge of the Buddha, we investigate that way, we start to remove that ignorance and we bring the wisdom. In the witness of the wisdom, there will not be any distraction because we don't need that wisdom. No, we don't need that ignorance. We don't need anger or delusion. So that wisdom is the purity. Okay? So, yes, friends, that is the wisdom. Now, let's go back to the sutta. Now, Buddha say, looking at the mind and seeing the greed, repeatedly applying the wisdom, you should abandon that greed. Okay? Also for the delusion, also for the hatred and anger. Okay? For an example, let's say that I get anger, I get greed. Now, how should I practice the wisdom when there is greed? What is the practice to abandon that greed and anger? What is the wiseful way of contemplating in order to let go that greed? What do you think? How have you been learned to the discussions that whenever let's say something to understand anger, how can we let go that to the Buddha's knowledge?
Loving kindness?
Anger, loving kindness. And greed?
Probably the same, no?
Loving kindness, no.
No.
That's not how it is instructed by the
Okay,
Buddha.
yeah.
Generosity?
You know, yes,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
Right.
Wonderful. Manfred said it.
Yeah.
Generosity. Generosity. Practicing giving and sharing, that's a very good way to let go of the greed. And overall, have you learned something like this? Everything arising and passing. Do you remember such a teaching we learned before?
Mhm.
Everything arises and vanishes, arises and passes. What was it? We gave a name for that. We defined a particular teaching in the teachings that something is arising and passing is like what?
Impermanence.
Yeah,
Impermanence. Now, how about these mental states, these thoughts? Are they permanent or impermanent?
Impermanent.
These are impermanent, whether it is good or bad. Let's say there is greed, that I see a delicious food. Now I get the greediness to the food. Now let's suppose that I take the food and consume that, and my greed. Now I will feel happy and I will feel comfortable. Now what happened to that greed after it finishes its task? What happens to the greed? In that moment, it will leaves our mind. It will stay for a while. It will do the task and it will leave our mind. Now, the greed is impermanent. And after 2-3 days, I will start to remember again about that food and I will get again the greed. And again, I will have the food. And again, greed, again, greed. Over the years in life, we had this greed in our heart and it is coming back again and again to us. And do you see that it has a rising and it has a passing? It is arising and passing, which means it is impermanent. Okay. Now the problem here is that it distracts the mind. Whether it is healthy or unhealthy, greediness distracts the mind. As soon as our mind is possessed by the greediness, we are not calm anymore. Our mind is not calm anymore. We try our best to calm us, but the greed won't let us do that. Up until we get the one that we desired, greed, our mind is very restless. That's a principle in our life. It's a law in our life. When we find something to be greedy, it starts to make our mind restless. Now, the practice is that we bring our wisdom, the knowledge of impermanence, the knowledge of rising and falling, to see this greed, to understand this greed is arising and passing. Even while we are searching for the food that we desired out of greed, we are having a greediness which is changing.
So do you meditate on the impermanence?
Exactly. We meditate and we try to understand the greed as impermanent. And anger too, jealousiness too, hatred, hostility, miserliness. All of these are impermanent, but our ignorance is that we don't see that as it is. We try to perceive that mental state, that thought as permanent as ever. And we try our best to define ourselves with that greed. We make ourselves with that greed, but it is impermanent. Whatever carries impermanent, it is unsatisfactory. If something is unsatisfactory, it is not self. It has to be seen as not self. That doesn't mean that you give up and you reject your purpose, but you see it as something that out from the control to be say that it is should be like this or should be like that, which means we can, well, with the thinking pattern, we can increase the greed We can also decrease the greed, but we cannot everlast the greed, because it is its own way. It is arising and falling. When we look deep into the greed, we see that it is arising and falling. If it takes 2 or 3 days to remove that greediness, however, that greediness leave our mind. It won't stay forever. Do you remember that we had so much greediness to the toys while we were very young? You know, when we see these helicopters, like the cars and vans, and our mom take us to carnivals and the beautiful events, we see that beautiful cars and these beautiful like beautiful toys are there in the shops, and we start to like love that with greediness. Oh, I need that, please bring that toy. But do we have the same greediness to that toy just now while we were grown? No. We have different expectations, different perspectives, different wantings, which means this greediness is in a constant change. You know, that's a big relief if we know that greed is impermanent. Now we are doing our full awareness meditation. We are walking. Now let's say while we walk, there is a greed enters to the mind because of a sight that we saw or sound we heard. Now what we do is that we bring the wisdom to the heart, and we try to look at the greed, and we try our best to understand that it is impermanent. It is arising and vanishing. And then you start to experience that it is leaving your mind. You can see for yourself that this greed is gradually leave your mind. But if there is a moment that you don't look through the wisdom, you will see that your mind possesses the greed and start to invade your mind and completely occupy your speech and your bodily actions, and you don't know what you did in that moment, led by that greediness. You know, one day there was a cat who was so much hungry and looking for a food. And all of a sudden, it saw there was a mouse. Because of not having food for 2, 3 days, the cat was so much hungry. Now the cat was thinking, whenever I catch a mouse, I don't think twice. I will take and I will swallow. I don't think twice because I'm so much starving. And while he was walking, he saw there was a mouse. All of a sudden, the cat jumped into the mouse and caught the mouse, and without thinking, without hesitation, it swallowed the mouse and entered the mouse into the belly. Because the cat couldn't chew, cat couldn't break the mouse. Without hesitation, the cat swallowed the mouse. The mouse was alive inside the belly. Mouse thought, okay, I'm still alive. I will teach him a lesson. And he started to scratch all the parts in the belly, like, you know, the intestines or the, you know, microchips and the circuits and this all the parts in the belly started to scratch or everything, because the mouse wanted to harm. So it scratched everything inside. Buddha say there is a monk who is going to the alms round. That is where they normally leave the monastery. That's why it is very taught as important. The monk go to the alms round, and the monk wanders in the village, monk go without mindfulness, without protecting the speech and without protecting the body, and see something which brings the greed. just the way the cat without chewing, without breaking, the cat swallowed the mouse. The monk take all the features which bring the greediness through the senses, and that something that we took through the senses stay inside and make us more and more greed. The problem was the monk couldn't uh, apply the wisdom what monk was perceiving through the senses. Monk just absorbed whatever come to the mind, just as the cat took without swallowing. Literally, which means as long as a practitioner apply the wisdom what the practitioner takes through the senses, as long as wisdom is applied, it won't harm. But if there is a moment where there is no wisdom and without mindfulness, when they absorb every information, every sight, sound, all these stuffs, it make a problem inside. And that is what we call the wrong speech led by that greed. Led by that greed, when we do something, some action, that is the wrong action. That is how a person kill living beings, steal others' property, and do sexual misconduct. Let's say that if there is a person who were mindful and without wisdom, and then when living the life, there can be something that person was greed, and it can be something belong to another. Now what this person do is led by that greed, go and kill the person who is belonging to that something greed. And then he broke the first precept. And then that will be a beautiful thing, then steal. And also sexual misconduct because of the greed. And telling lies and harsh speech and pointless talk is all about having these greed, anger, delusion, hostility, denigration, insolence, miserliness when they enter to our senses. Now, the cleansing starts by applying wisdom over your life, your body, mind, and your speech. If you core up your mind and you apply wisdom to your mind, whatever happens to it, you throw the scope of mind wisdom, you protect everything. You protect rest of the other body and verbal actions. One day a person said to the Buddha, Buddha, I don't like to observe precepts. I don't want rules. Buddha, I don't love the rules. I'm not that kind of a person. Don't put me these limitations. I don't like it. And the Buddha said, can you do just one? And the man said, of course I can do just one. What is it? So the Buddha said, just protect one. Protect your mind. You don't have to worry about the other actions. Just look and protect your mind. Can you do that? So he said, okay, I can do that. I will protect my mind. Why? As long as the mind is pure, there will not be any bad actions. We don't need to be so much concerned why there are so many rules, why there are so many precepts. As long as we look at our heart and look through the wisdom, we can protect our heart. And then later it will be safe, every actions. Now the wisdom is the ultimate power, ultimate force which protects our life. Okay, that leads to the awakening.
So, Bante, the protected mind is actually the result of wisdom, or is wisdom, no?
Protected the mind is actually wisdom is in a practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we start with the wisdom, and yeah, final goal is actually the completion of the wisdom. But wisdom is in the path, but the final goal is not the wisdom, but it is the awakening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wisdom is just a path, the third part of the practice, but it takes you to the liberation.
And you wanted to come back to the comparison to the heart, as Alan's question was, what's that got to do with the heart? And
Well,
I,
you know, yes, go on.
but you mentioned in a few sentences ago that then it does purify your heart, and that is ultimate wisdom, no?
Yeah, it purifies whatever you call it, heart, mind, or consciousness.
Yeah, yeah.
Because one day a person, Elder Bhante said to me that a person while he was in a monastery came to him and asked, I have a question. Where exactly is the mind? Where is exactly it is located? And this Bhante said, I don't I don't know where it is located, but that is not my problem. My problem is greed, anger, and delusion. No matter where it is located, whether it is on the top of the head or the belly or I don't know, the chest, that's not the problem. Where is it? But our problem is that we get angry, we get greed unnecessarily, even though that we don't want to talk to our loved ones with angrily, but why there is anger to our loved ones, hatred to them? Why there is greediness, even though that we have what we want, why there is greediness?
Mhm.
Thank you, Bante, for this. I just want to see if I understand it correctly. It's like because it says repeatedly. So
Yeah.
the key is to see through the eye of wisdom, and
Yes.
repeatedly because it doesn't happen. It's like in Western wisdom, it doesn't happen overnight, right?
Exactly.
that you
Very
that you
good. Yeah.
that you see it once and then it's gone, right? Because it's repeatedly it comes back. But the
Yes.
more you see it and the more you
Wow. Yes.
understand it,
Yes.
the
Very good.
less it will become. It's
Exactly.
like the less it will appear, and that goes for all the defilements, right? That
Exactly.
if
Very
it
good.
comes up, and because I often see myself and there's a thought coming and I'm thinking, okay, why am I thinking like this? This is not good.
Yeah.
It's like because I can't control my thoughts sometimes. It just
Yeah.
pops up, right?
Yes.
And then I'm thinking to myself, I should not think like that. That is not good. That's unwholesome. So I have to change it to something wholesome.
Yes.
So so abandoning that unwholesome thoughts that pops up all the time. So that is seeing
Yes.
the eye of wisdom.
What you said, everything just now is wisdom.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I
That's
understand.
your
Thank you.
attempt to grow the wisdom. That's wisdom. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bante.
Welcome. Okay, friends, we can finish our discussion. And thank you so much for joining. Let's share the merits. May all the beings rejoice in our good merits. May they have happiness, long life, health, and beauty. And may they soon attain the peace of mind. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And especially I would like to share this merit with my teacher Bante. May Bante have long life, happiness, health, and beauty. And may Bante have the great opportunity to understand the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And may all my friends joined, and also your family and your relatives all together be well, happy, and may you have long life, happiness, health, and beauty. And by the power of this merit, may you have great success in your spiritual life, and may you soon attain the peace of mind. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you so much for joining with me. May you be well and happy.